Imagine a garden that waters itself, a garden that feeds itself, a garden that gets better with time, not worse. This is a self-watering, self-feeding garden. Now imagine that this garden has existed for thousands of years, perfected by African communities long before modern agriculture ever claimed to have the answers. This is not a futuristic invention. This is not a Silicon Valley startup pitch. This is ancient knowledge, buried not by time, but by arrogance. Two systems, the Keyhole garden and Olla irrigation, save up to 70% of water while increasing crop yields. Africa perfected self-sustaining gardens for millennia, while the rest of the world was busy inventing so-called modern solutions that consume more, waste more, and cost more. The colonial mindset looked at these circular gardens and called them primitive. Science now calls them revolutionary. And the rest of us are only just beginning to remember what was never truly forgotten. Let us start in Lesotho, a small mountainous kingdom in southern Africa. In the 1990s, the AIDS epidemic was devastating communities. Families were collapsing, parents were dying, grandmothers were raising orphans. Many of the people left behind were too weak, too sick, or too old to tend a traditional garden. They could not bend, they could not walk long distances to fetch water, they could not afford fertilizer. So the Sea-Safe organization, working with local communities, developed something extraordinary. They called it the Keyhole garden. Picture a circular raised bed, 6 to 8 feet in diameter, built from stones and whatever local materials were available. It rises to waist height so no one has to bend down. Cut into the circle is a narrow wedge-shaped notch like the keyhole of a door, allowing a person to walk right up to the center. At that center sits a composting basket made from wire or woven sticks. That basket is the heart of the entire system. Here's how it works. You toss your kitchen scraps into the center basket. Vegetable peels, eggshells, tea leaves, anything organic. You pour your gray water in there too, the water left over from washing dishes or clothes. As these materials decompose, nutrients seep outward through the soil in every direction. When you water the basket, that moisture carries nutrients radially, feeding the plants arranged in concentric circles around it. The circular shape is not decorative, it is engineering. It ensures even distribution of both water and nutrients to every plant in the bed. The roots of those plants, in turn, grow inward toward the nutrient-rich center, creating a living web of interconnected growth beneath the surface. The stone walls trap moisture inside, and the composting system generates heat that extends the growing season. The result is a garden that uses 50 to 80% less water than a conventional garden plot. Over 20,000 Keyhole gardens have been built across Africa. 90% of them are still functioning years later, many with no outside support or maintenance. Think about that number, 90% still working. Compare that to the lifespan of modern irrigation infrastructure, which rusts, breaks, and requires constant expensive repair. These gardens were designed for the most vulnerable people in the most challenging conditions, and they endure. They do not just survive, they thrive. And they teach us something fundamental about design. The best systems are not the most complex. They are the ones that work with nature instead of against it. Now travel north and west to Senegal, where the Sahara Desert is advancing southward, swallowing farmland and displacing communities. Here, circular gardens are being deployed on a massive scale as part of the Great Green Wall, one of the most ambitious environmental projects on Earth. The Senegalese call them Tolu-Kur gardens, and each one holds up to 1,500 trees, creating microforests in what was once barren desert. Inside these circular enclosures, communities are growing papaya, mango, moringa, sage, and dozens of drought-resistant crops. Hundreds of these gardens are transforming dead land into living ecosystems. They are not just producing food, they are fighting desertification, rebuilding soil, and restoring hope to communities that were watching their world turn to dust. The circle, once again, proves to be the most resilient shape in nature. But the Keyhole garden is only half of this story. The other half is even older. It is called Olla irrigation, and it has been quietly watering crops for over 4,000 years. An olla is simply an unglazed terracotta pot, buried in the soil with its neck protruding above the surface. You fill it with water, and that water seeps slowly through the porous clay walls directly into the surrounding soil. The plants nearby sense this moisture and send their roots toward it. When the soil around the olla is saturated, the water stops seeping. When the plants drink and the soil dries, the water begins to flow again. It is a self-regulating system. The plant pulls water as it needs it through a principle called soil moisture tension. There is zero waste, no evaporation because the water is underground, no runoff because the delivery is slow and targeted, no overwatering because the soil itself controls the flow. This technology was documented in the Fan Shengqi Shu, widely considered the world's first agricultural text, written over 2,000 years ago. It was used extensively across North Africa and China. It required no pumps, no pipes, no electricity, and no engineering degree. Just clay, water, and an understanding of how soil and plants communicate. The science behind ollas is staggering. A study conducted in Kenya measured water savings of 97.1% for maize and 97.8% for tomatoes compared to conventional irrigation. Yield increases were equally dramatic. 32.2% more maize and 43.7% more tomatoes per unit of water used. In India, researchers found that melons produced 25 tons per hectare using only 2 centimeters of water delivered through ollas. Conventional flood irrigation required 26 centimeters of water to produce just 33 tons per hectare. The olla system used a fraction of the water and nearly matched the output. And there are additional benefits that rarely get mentioned. Because the surface soil stays dry, weed growth drops by as much as 85%. That means less labor, less competition for nutrients, and healthier crops. The roots grow deep and strong as they seek the buried water source, making plants more resilient to drought and wind. There is no plant stress from inconsistent watering, no shock from dry spells followed by flooding. The olla provides steady, patient, reliable moisture exactly where and when the plant needs it. And every one of these pots can be made from local clay by village potters using skills passed down through generations. So what happened? How did we forget all of this? The answer is colonial disruption and industrial ambition. When modern irrigation was introduced across Africa and Asia, ancient knowledge was not studied or integrated. It was dismissed. Drip irrigation, invented in 1959, was celebrated as cutting-edge technology. It is effective, but it requires manufactured tubing, filters, pressure regulators, and often electricity. It is a product, something that can be sold, distributed, and controlled. Olla irrigation and keyhole gardens cannot be commodified in the same way. You cannot patent a clay pot. You cannot sell a subscription to a composting basket. And so these systems were pushed aside, not because they failed, but because they could not generate profit. The push for industrial agriculture buried traditional knowledge under layers of marketing and modernization. Generations of farmers were taught that their ancestors' methods were outdated, that progress meant buying inputs from corporations. The knowledge did not disappear entirely, but the transmission was disrupted. Elders who knew how to build these systems passed away without teaching the next generation, because the next generation had been told there was nothing worth learning. This is why these systems matter beyond their practical benefits. They represent a philosophy of design that modern sustainability movements are only now rediscovering. Permaculture, the darling of the contemporary environmental movement, is built on principles that African communities practiced for centuries. Circular design that mimics natural ecosystems, waste becoming resource through integrated composting, minimal input for maximum output, accessibility for people of all physical abilities. These are not new ideas repackaged in trendy language. They are old ideas that were stolen, forgotten, and are now being sold back to the communities that created them. The climate case for these systems is equally compelling. In a world facing unprecedented drought, water scarcity, and rising temperatures, gardens that regulate their own water use are not a luxury. They are a necessity. Keyhole gardens and Olla systems create microclimates that support biodiversity. They reduce greenhouse gas emissions associated with conventional agriculture. They sequester carbon through continuous composting. They build community resilience without dependence on external supply chains, electrical grids, or municipal water systems. When disaster strikes, when the power goes out, when the supply trucks stop coming, these gardens keep producing. They are the definition of resilience. Today, a global revival is underway. Texas master gardeners are teaching keyhole garden construction across the American South. Urban permaculture projects in Europe, Asia, and the Americas are adopting circular garden designs. Disaster preparedness organizations are recommending Olla irrigation as a low-cost, reliable food production method. Researchers at Western Kentucky University, institutions in Kenya, and agricultural programs in India have all published studies confirming what African communities knew all along. These systems work. They work better than what replaced them, and they work for everyone. But let us be precise about what we call this movement. It is not a discovery. It is a remembrance. Africa did not just survive harsh climates. African communities thrived in them, using circular systems that modern engineers are still trying to match. The most efficient irrigation method in the world is not modern. It is 4,000 years old. Circular gardens are not a trendy permaculture experiment. They are proven African innovation, tested across generations and validated by science. Industrial agriculture did not replace these methods because they were inferior. It replaced them because they could not be controlled, packaged, or sold at a markup. The knowledge was always here, patient and persistent as the water seeping through clay. So here is what you can do. Build a keyhole garden in your backyard, your community lot, your school. Bury an Olla next to your tomato plants and watch what happens. Share this knowledge and honor its origins. Do not call these primitive methods. They are among the most sophisticated agricultural solutions ever devised. The modern world is not inventing the future of sustainable farming. It is finally, humbly, catching up to what Africa always knew.